The ACC might be falling apart, but there's one thing about the ACC that you can't deny. It is the best conference when it comes to producing quarterbacks.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everyone, to the Locked On Clemson podcast. My name is John Bivens. I'm your host. You can follow us over on X at I am John Bivens. We are so glad that you are making your first listen every day here on the Locked On Clemson podcast. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast at and over on YouTube. We are a part of the amazing Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Thanks for making it your first listen here. Make sure your second listen is one of our mini shows, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We have over 200 shows about all different kinds of sports, leagues, cities that you can listen to every day. My first listen every day is the Locked On ACC show. My second is Locked On Padres, where I go and listen to everything about the San Diego Padres. So whatever you're interested in, listen to Locked On Clemson, and then make sure your second listen is another show like the Locked On ACC show. Today we have a great episode for you where we're diving into ACC, how it's QB Central. We're going to talk about ACC Media Day is next week, who's going to be representing Clemson, and then we're also going to talk about the 5 most laughed at coaches. So we'll talk about all that and so much more on this show. We are grateful for all our sponsors that make this show possible. We appreciate all of them. So, as I'm sure you are aware of, there's so much rumors about Clemson's leaving, FSU's leaving, there's court cases, there's filings, there's hearings, there's rumors about going to the Big 12. There's so many different rumors, there's so many different opinions out there about what's going on with the ACC. And one of the largest opinions in the college world is that the ACC is no more. How they're garbage, how they're in last place when it comes to so many things. And first off, that just doesn't make sense. There's success all around. Look at the March Madness this past year. 4 ACC schools made up the Elite 8. You can't say that about any other conference. So crazy that rumor's out there. But one thing we're going to talk about today, the ACC is good at many things, but one of the things they're amazing at is producing quarterbacks. Go down the list of history. Go through history, and you can name so many really, really talented ACC quarterbacks. If you just look at the NFL, look at starters in the NFL. You got Phillip Rivers. You have, obviously, Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence. You have Ryan Finley, who started a couple of years. You have so many starting quarterbacks. Russell Wilson, I know he graduated from Wisconsin, but he even says when they do the Sunday night, where are you from? He says, I'm from a whole pack of Badgers, because he's from NC State majority. ACC produces so many talented quarterbacks. And while the future is up in the air for ACC, you can't deny that's past. And we're just going to read off some amazing stats that are brought to you by a channel that's associated with the USA Sports, with USA Today. So we're going to bring this, and just listen how these stats prove how the ACC is quarterback central. Number one, the ACC has a return of amazing full-time starters this coming year. They have Thomas Castellanos from Boston College, Cade Klubnik, Grayson Loftus at Duke, Hayne Kings at Georgia Tech, Preston Stone, SMU, Kyron Jones, Virginia Tech. You also got transfers like DJU at FSU, Tyler Shaw at Louisville, Cam Ward, Miami, Grayson McCall, NC State, Kyle McCord at Syracuse. It's great quarterbacks there. I know Duke quarterback is also a transfer. But then you go farther. According to CBS Sports, the top-ranked group of quarterback transfers in 2024 is in the ACC. Keep going farther. Look at more of that. 13 quarterbacks in the league entered 2024 season with over 20 career touchdown passes and over 3,500 career passing yards. 13 quarterbacks out of the ACC have that. That's wild. That is such a high priority. When it goes to the NFL, right now, did you know a quarter of NFL teams have a quarterback that are projected to start week 1 in the 2024 NFL season? 8 different quarterbacks from ACC schools are projected to start week 1 in the 2024 NFL season. 1/4 of the NFL is an ACC quarterback at the starting position. Since 2018, the ACC has at least one quarterback drafted in the first round in 5 different drafts. 5 different drafts since 2018, ACC has had a quarterback in the first round. That's the only conference to have that many. The ACC non-conference schedule, so you're like, okay, it's cool. They have quarterbacks. But they play really good opponents. And you're like, oh, ACC's weak. When it comes down to non-con schedule, ACC continues to be the most challenging non-conference schedule in all of the country. 27 games against Power 4 opponents, including Notre Dame. That's more than any other conference. 9 non-conference games against team ranked in the final 2023 Associated Press. So the last AP poll of 2023, 9 non-conference games against those teams that were ranked there. That's the most of any conference. We have 10 non-conference games this year against the ESPN's 2024 Way Too Early Top 25, the most of any conference. So it produces great quarterbacks. It's got it plays hard opponents. It also has amazing coaching leadership. 6 head coaches in the ACC were part of the Dodd Trophy preseason watch list. We talked about that early on in the season. Dabo made that list. 6 ACC head coaches were on that preseason watch list for the Coach of the Year award. And then there's only 3 coaches in the nation right now coaching for college football that have won a national championship, and 2 of them are in the ACC with Dabo Swinney and Mack Brown. The ACC knows how to present. The ACC is still alive, and they're quarterback central. They produce the best quarterbacks, especially at the next level. And with that being said, there's so many rumors going around about how the ACC is dead. And I'll say this. If Clemson and FSU leave the ACC, I agree. I think that starts a snowball where NC State's gone, Carolina's gone, Miami's gone, possibly Louisville. I think it creates a snowball effect where other schools will leave and the ACC will cease to exist or definitely be lower tier. But if Clemson and FSU stay, they're going to keep being one of the best conferences. They're going to keep being one of the powerhouse conferences. I know football, they've had a couple off years. They've had historically, they don't have the prowess of like the Big Ten, the SEC, but compared to the Big 12, they're up there. The ACC is definitely, they get so much hate on it, and I don't understand. But the ACC is alive, and if Clemson and FSU stay, ACC is still one of the best 4 conferences, and it's not 1, 2, 3, 4. Like some people think it's 1, 2, 3. ACC's way down here. No, it's all level. When you look at different sports, when you look at different successes, the ACC is still there. So while there's all different kinds of rumors about how ACC's down and there's so many opinions out there about how people hate the ACC, when it comes down to it, the ACC is quarterback central, produces some of the best quarterbacks. 25% of starting NFL quarterbacks are ACC quarterbacks. You can't argue with that. You can't argue with the fact that 13 of the ACC quarterbacks have over 20 career touchdowns and 3,500 passing yards. You can't argue with that stats. You can't argue with the fact that since 2018, 5 first rounds have featured ACC quarterbacks, at least one. You can't argue. The ACC has talented quarterbacks, has talented play. It is QB central. So as we're moving forward, as we see if the ACC is truly going to die, if we see if the ACC is truly going to be no more, if that's really what's going to happen, we got to think about what's going to miss. How is that going to affect the college football? How's it going to affect the NFL? Because obviously they're producing, they're a pipeline for the NFL when it comes to quarterbacks. How is all that going to adjust? How is that going to change? How is all going to fare? That's a fair question. So we're monitoring this, and we'll keep bringing you all the up-to-date news on the court casing and conference realignment and all of that. One thing you can't argue, the ACC is quarterback central. Next week, ACC launches their media day, or they have their media week next week, where Monday, a couple teams are there. The ACC commissioner is going to get together and put a little panel up there where you can ask questions, all that stuff. We will be there at media day. We are planning on being there Monday and possibly Thursday. So we are going to be there at the media day. Let us know questions that you want us to ask specific players. When we come back from this quick break, we're going to talk about the representatives from Clemson that will be attending media day and talk about that and so much more. So we'll talk about that in just a second.
This episode of Locked On Clemson is brought to you by FanDuel. Guess what, guys? I love sports. I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. Whew, man, FanDuel has got you covered. FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app, dream up some bets anytime I'm in the mood. I'm telling you guys, it's at your leisure. You can be laying on the couch, twinkling your little toes, and you say, you know what? I want to drop a bet in this bad boy right now. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. Yes, every single day. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel is the official sportsbook betting partner of Major League Baseball.
Welcome back to Locked On Clemson podcast. ACC Media Week is next week, and their schedule is out. You can find what schedule's out there. It's going to be live televised and all that for a lot of the portion over on ACC Network. We're going to be there. We will not be there every day of the week because we're a Clemson podcast, so we're going to be there Monday when the ACC gives his opening comments, and we'll be there Thursday where Clemson, that's the day that Clemson's there, that they'll have their players there ready for questionings and interviews and that kind of concept. So we will be there. We have media credentials to appear at that and ask some questions. So if you want to ask any questions, if you want to have any questions that you want answered, that you would like specific answers for asking Clemson representatives, let us know. Send us a tweet, drop a comment on YouTube. We would love to. We want to be your representatives, right? We say it all the time. We are a podcast by the fans for the fans. Just because we're credentialed media does not make us any less fans than any of you. So I would love to represent you in the best way. So if you have questions, drop them. I will do my best to ask those. And if that does happen, we will try to play a recording of that here on the Locked On Clemson podcast of us recording that and bringing some of that content over here. So that'd be great stuff. Drop those. But in order for you to know what questions asked, you have to know who's there. So Clemson has released their representatives that will be at Clemson University at the Media Day representing Clemson. Of course, Dabo Swinney will be there. Excited to see there. I am positive that he's going to be answering a bunch of questions about conference realignment, as well as Jim Phillips and the rest of ACC. So I'm sure that'll be a topic that we'll be able to bring forth about there. Dabo will be there. Starting on the offensive side, some of the leaders that we talked about in our last episode, talking about offensive leaders coming from Garrett Riley, will be there. We got Cade Klubnik, who was the junior quarterback, obviously starting quarterback for Clemson. He's from Austin, Texas, 5-star recruit, energetic leader. He's going to be there. In 2023, he had his first full year as a starter, which I'm sure you know. Just go through a couple of his stats. He went 290 of 454 passes, 19 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He also rushed 125 times for 182 yards. That's terrible. That is a terrible ratio. That means he's averaging just over a yard a rush. Terrible. But he had 4 rushing touchdowns. He had 974 snaps over 12 games. That's the 4th most by a Clemson quarterback in a season. The most since Deshaun Watson in 2016. So last year, one thing you can say about Cade is he was there. He was consistently playing, so that's exciting. But Cade Klubnik's going to be there. Another offensive player that'll be there is Phil Maffa. Phil Maffa was the quiet leader. Garrett Riley said that he was a quiet leader, one that wasn't going to lead with words, but lead with actions, lead with his play, making sure that he's always doing what he needs to do. The graduate senior will be there, 6'1", 230 pounds. 2023 was a career year for him. He's a 4th-team All-ACC pick by Phil Steele. He recorded career highs in rushing yards, rushing attempts, rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, receptions, and receiving yards. He had over 500 snaps in 13 games, and that was all combined with Will Shipley. Now imagine this year where he's going to be the dominant back, the number 1 back. That's exciting to see. So excited to see him there. I'm excited to talk to him about what that means. How does he embody that quiet leadership that he's known to have? Excited to see him there. Defensive side, they have 2 defensive players that'll be there. One, not a surprise at all. You got Barrett Carter. He's the captain of this team. He's the holder. He's the captain. He's a senior from Georgia, 6'1", 230, same size as Phil Maffa. Fun fact. It's crazy when you watch football, knowing that Phil Maffa and Barrett Carter are same size. It's kind of like, really? Is that the case? But anyway, 2023, again, he had a great year. He was a lot impact trophy quarterfinalist, 2nd-team All-ACC selection by the league and Phil Steele. He was 3rd-team All-ACC from College Football Network, ranked 2nd on the team in tackles, had 9.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, 6 pass breakups, interception, and a fumble in over 600 snaps over 12 games, which all of those were starters. He also was an All-ACC academic selection. He had a great year last year. I'm excited to get in the room and talk about how He's got to be the leader now. He's got to help develop. He's got to help make sure that he's filling the gap, making sure the younger players leading them to fill the gap left by Jeremiah Trotter Jr., talking with the defensive lineman. He's not a defensive lineman. He's a linebacker. But talking with the defensive line about filling the holes from some left in the draft and graduated last year. So I'm excited to see his comments about being the leader, him showing up there. So excited about Barrett Carter being there. And we also, this one kind of surprised me. It makes sense now that I see it, but I probably wouldn't have guessed this one. But R.J. Mickens, the senior graduate student from Clemson, he's a safety, 6 foot, 210 pounds, will be at Clemson or at the media day representing Clemson this year. That's exciting to see. 2023 wasn't a career year. 2022 looked a lot better for him, but he had a good year last year. He ranked third on the team with 50 tackles, 4 pass breakups, a fumble recovery in 11 games, 9 of those starts. He had 5 tackles and a pass breakup just in one game, and that was opening day against Duke. So it was great to see that. I'm excited about seeing him there. I think biggest thing I'll probably be asking him is asking about the Andrew Makuba with that him. How he's going to fill that gap. Also, maybe asking about some corners. We got some younger cornerbacks that are coming in. Khalil Barnes in the secondary as well. Talking about how he's going to help lead them as a very experienced player playing among some younger players. How he's going to help coach them up, continue to be the leader of the secondary, and as far as experience and age that well. So those are the 5 representative for Clemson. Dabo Swinney, Barrett Carter, Cade Klubnik, Phil Maffa, R.J. Mickens. Let us know what questions you want to be asked. Let us know if you have any questions. You're like, hey, you got to ask him this. We'll do our best to ask him, even if they're like funny questions. I don't know if I'll ask that, but we'll see. You never know. But with ACC Media Day, we also thought we'd do this. Obviously, we're going to try to be there for some other schools as well. And so I just want to go through a couple people that I would love to ask questions regarding Clemson about specifically. Number 1, Boston College's head coach. I think it would be really interesting to talk to Bill O'Brien about Clemson. 1, he plays them, right? He's a coach in the conference. But number 2, he's also had many years coaching some pretty high-profile Clemson players. He had Deshaun Watson. He had DeAndre Hopkins. He had some high-profile Clemson players. I'd love to get his thoughts on the Tigers, on the university as a whole. See his thoughts on what his true feelings are Clemson as an opponent, as a coach of players, of alumni from there. I'd love to get that. I think that could be really, really interesting. I'd also like to get questions on Manny Diaz, the head coach at Duke. I think that could be an interesting perspective. He was at Miami. He's played Clemson. He's played these ACC opponents before. Now he's back at Duke, another ACC school, trying to see how that is, if the conference has changed feels any since he was last in the league. How does it feel different from Miami now that he's at Duke? I'd love to talk about there. I would love Florida State. I was so excited to be able to ask DJU some questions. I thought that'd be awesome to be able to ask his opinion on going back to Clemson and all that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, he is not one of the FSU representatives. They are not bringing DJU along. I'm not sure why. Not sure if it's a choice or if they just didn't choose him to come. So he won't be there, but I would love to ask him a couple of questions about that, some things about that. Another one this one might not be as a lot of people might not say, but one that I would like to talk about is Quincy Riley. Quincy Riley is a secondary member of the Louisville Cardinals. I would love to ask him. He grew up in Columbia, South Carolina, and he grew up very much in between that Clemson-South Carolina rivalry. I'm curious, as someone that's played in the ACC now, how he would feel, what his comments are on that rivalry, seeing that in person, seeing that Clemson environment, playing in there as an opponent. I'd love to get his comments and his thoughts about that. I'd love to talk about Mack Brown. Mack Brown is known as one of the best coaches in college football history. Honestly, I want to ask him if he thinks Dabo has cemented himself in the top 5 of head coaches in history. So I'd love to get his opinions there. Dave Doran, another one at NC State, just that rivalry at NC State. He's played so many games against Clemson. Talk about that environment, memorable moments. Obviously talk to the new schools, California, SMU, Stanford, about coming into the conference, seeing their opinion there. That would be interesting. And the last one is this. I'd love to talk to Tony Elliott. I just like that guy. I think he's an amazing guy. I wish he was having better success at Virginia. I really do. He was a great. We loved having him at Clemson. I think him and his dual offensive coordinator role that he was in is our best offensive coordinator time period that we've ever had at Clemson University. So I just love to talk to him. Hopefully he has some success this year. But like we said, we'll be at Media Week 2 of those days. Send us your questions, send us your comments, and we'll do our best to make sure we ask those if they fit into the conversation. But we're going to take one more quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue on our every Thursday episode where we talk about Turbulent Thursdays with some hot takes. We'll see you in just a second. Welcome back to the Locked On Clemson podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. Hey, tomorrow, Friday, July 19th, we are rolling out our Locked On Clemson podcast Insider program, where you can join us on the Insider list, get one-on-one conversations, as well as opening up more perks as we're soft launching this. So if you are interested in that, make sure you join us tomorrow for the Locked On Clemson Insider program on information, how you can join that, how you can be a part of that, and all that. So that's going to be great. We'll talk about all that later on. But every Thursday, we try to do a segment called Turbulent Thursdays, which is where we go through and we talk about some hot takes. We talk about what people are talking about. We talked about what people are saying. What are some hot takes regarding Clemson that are just ridiculous? And so we want to talk about 2 of them today, one of them a little bit longer. But the first one we want to talk about is this. I'm so tired. I'm physically, mentally, spiritually exhausted of hearing people say that Clemson and FSU do not belong in one of the other Power 3 conferences. I'm so over it. And here's the fact. Let's look at it. Let's look at the members of these universities and see if Clemson, if we're not even worried about FSU, if Clemson measures up to them, all right? So the Big Ten members, here's the Big Ten members. University of Illinois, I'm going to count how many I think we are better than in football. Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Maryland, Michigan, we're not going to count Michigan, Michigan State, Minnesota, Nebraska, we won't count Nebraska. There's different opinions there. We won't count them. Northwestern, won't count Ohio State right now. Penn State, I would say yes, but I won't count them just for the act of fairness. Purdue, Rutgers, and Wisconsin. 10 universities, and I was lenient. I was pretty fair on that rankings. 10 of the Big Ten, Clemson is better than, but we don't belong there. We wouldn't play there. We would get crushed all the time. No, we wouldn't. We would finish at worst 3rd. I think we have a chance of winning it. But yeah, so Big Ten, I'm tired of hearing that comment. Get them out of there. Big 12, this is perhaps the most ridiculous one. Let's go through. What universities are we better? Again, we'll be extra lenient. We'll be completely unbiased. Arizona, Arizona State, Baylor, BYU, UCF, Cincinnati, Colorado, Houston, Iowa State, Kansas, we won't talk Kansas State, Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas Tech, we won't count Utah, and West Virginia. It's 14. 14 of the Big 12 schools that we just counted. That's what it is. And people are saying, "Oh, you get blown out there. You wouldn't play where." Man, hush up. I'm so tired of that. I'm so tired of that. It's not valid. Clemson has the history. Clemson has the proof. Clemson has the team to not only compete, but thrive and have success in that conference. So get them out of there. Now, this is the biggest one. The SEC. I will admit the SEC is the best conference in football. That's not an admitting. That's just speaking of fact. I'm not going to argue with that at all. But let's just count the schools that Clemson's competitive with, that Clemson could beat. Alabama, I'm not going to count right now because I don't want the arguments. All right, remember, we're being lenient. As a Clemson fan, I'd love to argue all day, but we're not going to count that. Arkansas, Auburn, Florida's hit or miss. We won't count them, but I would put a finger up. I'm going to, Florida. Mississippi State, Missouri not going to count. Oklahoma not going to count. South Carolina, Georgia not going to count, obviously. Kentucky, even though I think we'll beat them week 1. Kentucky, LSU, I would count. I would say yes. I probably get some people to argue, but I'd say yes. Ole Miss, I won't put out there. Tennessee, I won't. Texas, I won't. Texas A&M, Vanderbilt. Stop saying we won't play well. Stop saying we don't belong in these conferences when every single one, we're better than over half of them. I'm so tired of that take. It's an old take. It's a laughable take. It's ridiculous. So just quit. Just stop it. So that's take 1 that I think is ridiculous, and I think we should just shut it down. Take 2 is this. Jerome Myron from USA Today Sports put out a list of the 5 coaches who nation laughs at. 5 of the most laughed at coaches in the United States. He did not agree with these. He agreed with some of them. He didn't. He just put out the 5 most laughed at. So I'm not getting on to Jerome Myron. I'm getting on to the people that laugh at him. Really, there's only one I'm going to talk about specifically. And think about the show. You can probably guess what it is. But number 1 was Deion Sanders. I get that. I 100% get that. Number 2 was Mario Cristobal with Miami. Yeah, take a knee, right? It's all right. We can move on. But take a knee. It's probably better for you. If you get that, I hope you do. Number 3, Bill Napier with Florida. Man, that's a great guy. He gets the short end of the stick. Number 5 with Hugh Freeze. I hate that he gets laughed at, man. He did great at Ole Miss, did great at Liberty, helped build that program, nice at Auburn, and some reason people hate him. But number 4, the big one, is Dabo Swinney. I don't get this. I don't get why Dabo gets so much disrespect. He's one of only 3 coaches in the league right now that has a national championship, and he has 2 of them. He's won the ACC more times than anybody recently. He's done so much success. He's a top recruiter every single year, which we talked about a couple episodes ago. Yes, he doesn't do transfer portal. Sorry that he's loyal to his guys. Sorry that he'd rather develop guys than go get with players that aren't bought in as much to the program. So loyalty means you get laughed at. And sometimes it's like, oh, yeah, his Southern accent. Are you kidding me? We're laughing at Dabo Swinney for his Southern accent, but we're not going to laugh at a guy that goes and imitates a Southern accent just because he got a job at a Southern school. When he was at a Northern school, he acted like he was perfectly Northern. We won't laugh at that, but we're going to laugh at Dabo for being Southern. He gets laughed at us for religious beliefs. Man, I'm not even talking about that. That's crazy. That's so stupid. He gets laughed at. The hate for Dabo Swinney is ridiculous. It is absolutely a joke how much hate he gets and how much he gets laughed at for just being himself, for being loyal, for being a great coach, for caring about men and young men more than he cares about the sport, but also loving the sport and being one of the best at coaching it and recruiting new players and having success more than almost anybody else and beating the top 10 program. You know, him and Nick Saban went 2-2. One of the best coach of all time in college football has a 500 record against Dabo Swinney, but no, he's a joke. Right? No, it's so dumb. End it. In that. I'm tired of it. Put it up. I'm done with it. But that's just a hot take. And I think it's a ridiculous take. If you agree with it, let us know. But I'll probably think you're ridiculous as well. Maybe not, but that's a little out there. But yeah, it's just so dumb. It's ridiculous. I hate that take. I hate those. I think it's dumb. A lot of those people on that list, a couple of them I agree with. A couple I'm like, take them off. But anyway, with all that being said, that's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Clemson podcast. Make sure you join us tomorrow as we launch the Insider program for the Locked On Clemson podcast. But we would love to hear your thoughts here on what we talked about today. Do you think ACC's QB Central? What are some questions you want to ask at Media Week? Do you agree with Dabo Swinney being the 4th most laughed at coach in the nation? And do you agree that he should be there? Make sure you let us know all that. We'd love to hear comments, or you'd love to read your comments. Send us a message on Twitter, all that kind of stuff. But with all that being said, make sure you subscribe to this podcast as well, wherever you get your podcast at, and over on YouTube. YouTube, we are on the road to 1,000 subscribers. We are almost there. We've grown so much. We've grown by 40 subscribers in the past 2 weeks. Help us continue that growth up. Help us continue that. We're 55 subscribers away from 1,000. We would love to have your help. Hit that subscribe button. That way your first listen every single day can be here on the Locked On Clemson podcast. Can't wait to see you on tomorrow's episode. Until then, keep that Tiger pride alive and roaring. And as always, go Tigers.